Nothing from nothing is one of the most important doctrines of Epicurean physics, the Epicurean worldview about the nature of the universe. In this brief presentation, we'll talk about the foundation of that doctrine in the Epicurean texts, the reasoning behind the doctrine, the implications of the doctrine of nothing coming from nothing, and then a series of takeaway conclusions that are important for the remainder of Epicurean philosophy. First, the foundation of the doctrine in the texts. In the letter to Herodotus, section 38, Epicurus says, quote, "Having made these points clear, we must now consider things imperceptible to the senses. First of all, that nothing is created out of that which does not exist, for if it were, everything would be created out of everything with no need of seeds." A similar point is made in Lucretius Book 1, section 146. "This terror then, this darkness of mind, must needs be scattered, not by the rays of the sun and the gleaming shafts of day, but by the outer view and the inner law of nature, whose first rule shall take its start for us from this, that nothing is ever begotten of nothing by divine will." The reasoning behind this doctrine is expressed in a number of important passages in the Epicurean text. First of all, if things did come from nothing, anything could come into being without any fixed seeds. This is presented in Lucretius Book 1, 159. "For if things came into being from nothing, every kind might be born from all things. Nothing would need a seed. First, men might arise from the sea, and from the land the race of scaly creatures, and birds burst forth from the sky. Cattle and other herds, and all the tribe of wild beasts, with no fixed law of birth, would haunt tilth and desert. Nor would the same fruits stay constant to the trees, but all would change. All trees might avail to bear all fruits. Why, were there not bodies to bring each thing to birth, how could things have a fixed, unchanging mother? But as it is, since all things are produced from fixed seeds, each thing is born and comes forth into the coasts of light, out of that which has in it the substance and first bodies of each. And 'tis for this cause that all things cannot be begotten of all, because in fixed things there dwells a power set apart." Another reason in support of the doctrine of nothing coming from nothing is that if things did come from nothing, things could come into being at any time. This is explained in Lucretius 1, 174. Again, why do we see the roses in spring, and the corn in summer's heat, and the vines bursting out when autumn summons them, if it be not that when in their own time the fixed seeds of things have flowed together, then is disclosed each thing that comes to birth, while the season is at hand, and the lively earth in safety brings forth the fragile things into the coasts of light. But if they sprang from nothing, suddenly would they arise at uncertain intervals and in hostile times of the year, since indeed there would be no first beginnings which might be kept apart from creative union at an ill-starred season. In other words, there's a reason why flowers grow and bloom in the spring and the summer and not in the middle of the winter, and the makeup of the seeds of the flowers are the explanation of why that happens, not the instructions from a god. Another reason, if things did come from nothing, things would grow at any pace. This is found in Lucretius 1, 184. Nay more, there would be no need for lapse of time for the increase of things upon the meeting of the seed, if they could grow from nothing. For little children would grow suddenly to youths, and at once trees would come forth, leaping from the earth. But of this it is well seen that nothing comes to pass, since all things grow slowly, and as is natural, from a fixed seed, and as they grow, preserve their kind, so that you can know that each thing grows great and is fostered out of its own substance. Again, there's no supernatural forces that regulate the growth of things. They occur in a regular manner based on the nature of the seeds that have come together, the atoms that have come together to form their substance. Another argument in support of nothing coming from nothing is that if things did come from nothing, there would be no regularity in the seasons. Lucretius 1:192. There is this too, that without fixed rain showers in the year, the earth could not put forth its gladdening produce, nor again, held apart from food, could the nature of living things renew its kind or preserve its life. So that rather you may think that many bodies are common to many things, as we see letters are to words, than that without first beginnings anything can come into being. Again, the atoms are the basis of the continuity of the change of seasons and the way we see things come together. If things did come from nothing, nature could produce men of superhuman size and strength. This is in Lucretius 1:199. Once more, why could not nature produce men so large that on their feet they might wade through the waters of ocean, or rend asunder mighty mountains with their hands, or live to overpass many generations of living men, if it be not because fixed substance has been appointed for the begetting of things, from which it is ordained what can arise? Therefore we must confess that nothing can be brought to being out of nothing, inasmuch as it needs a seed for things, from which each may be produced and brought forth into the gentle breezes of the air. Another argument. If things did come from nothing, there would be no reason for us to plow the ground, as crops would come into being without any work from us. Lucretius 1:208. Lastly, inasmuch as we see that tilled grounds are better than the untilled, and when worked by hands yield better produce, we must know that there are in the earth first beginnings of things, which we call forth to birth by turning the teeming sods with the plowshare, and drilling the soil of the earth. But if there were none such, you would see all things without toil of ours of their own will come to be far better. Again, it's the regularity of the things that we see that proves to us that there is some mechanism such as the atoms that produces this regularity. There are a number of significant implications of nothing coming from nothing. First of all, things can be and are created without any God willing it to be so. This is stated in Lucretius 1:138. Fear, forsooth, so constrains all mortal men, because they behold many things come to pass on earth and in the sky, the cause of whose working they can by no means see, and they think that a divine power brings them about. Therefore, when we have seen that nothing can be created out of nothing, then more rightly after that shall we discern that for which we search, both whence each thing can be created, and in what way all things come to be, without the aid of gods. Another implication, the universe as a whole has always existed. That, of course, does not mean that the Earth or any planet or solar system or galaxy has always existed, but the universe as a whole, which means everything, has always existed. Herodotus, section 39, says this, "And again, if that which disappears were destroyed into that which did not exist, all things would have perished, since that into which they were dissolved would not exist. Furthermore, the universe always was such as it is now, and always will be the same. For there is nothing into which it changes, for outside the universe there is nothing which could come into it and bring about the change." Again, the universe is all that exists without limit. It's not just the observable universe or our part of the galaxy, our part of the universe. Universe in Epicurean terms refers to all that exists. Another implication is that we can have confidence in approaching the mysteries of nature, knowing that it operates naturally through the atoms moving through the void and not because of supernatural will. Herodotus 83 says this, "Here, Herodotus, is my treatise on the chief points concerning the nature of the general principles, abridged so that my account would be easy to grasp with accuracy." I think that even if one were unable to proceed to all the detailed particulars of the system, he would from this obtain an unrivaled strength compared with other men. For indeed he will clear up for himself many of the detailed points by reference to our general system, and these very principles, if he stores them in his mind, will constantly aid him. Epicurus is very specific on this point, that these doctrines of atomism give confidence to us in our understanding of nature. He continues on, "For such is their character that even those who are at present engaged in working out the details to a considerable degree, or even completely, will be able to carry out the greater part of their investigations into the nature of the whole by conducting their analysis in reference to such a survey as this. And as for all who are not fully among those on the way to being perfected, some of them can from this summary obtain a hasty view of the most important matters without oral instruction, so as to secure peace of mind." In the letter to Pythocles, section 116, Epicurus said, "All these things, Pythocles, you must bear in mind, for thus you will escape in most things from superstition, and you will be enabled to understand what is akin to them. And most of all, give yourself up to the study of the beginnings, and of infinity, and of the things akin to them, and also of the criteria of truth, and of the feelings, and of the purpose for which we reason out these things. For these points, when they are thoroughly studied, will most easily enable you to understand the causes of the details. But those who have not thoroughly taken these things to heart cannot rightly study them in themselves, nor have they made their own the reason for observing them." This was illustrated hundreds of years later when Lucian of Samosata wrote about Epicurus and used this as an example when an Epicurean was confronting a fraudulent claim of supernatural divinity in a fraudulent snake that this oracle was suggesting could tell him the future, and that he was using to intimidate and to persuade the people around him to give him money and to allow him to tell them what to do. Lucian wrote as follows, "The poor uneducated fatheads might well be taken in when they handled the serpent," which this oracle was using as a display, a privilege conceded to all who chose, "and saw in that dim light its head with the mouth that opened and shut. It was an occasion for a Democritus, nay, for an Epicurus or a Metrodorus perhaps, a man whose intelligence was steeled against such assaults by skepticism and insight, one who, if he could not detect the precise imposture, would at any rate have been perfectly certain that though this escaped him, the whole thing was a lie and an impossibility." This is the kind of attitude that you can have when you are confident that the universe operates naturally through atoms and void, which rules out the possibility of there being a supernatural dimension. Where does that leave us? It brings us to several takeaway conclusions that we'll use to end our presentation today. First of all, we can be confident that all things are created naturally rather than supernaturally. We're not just left in suspension, skeptical, without any position whatsoever. We have a reasonable understanding of the way things work through the atoms moving through the void that gives us confidence that everything we're going to come into contact with, even if it's new to us, is operating naturally and is not caused by supernatural beings. Secondly, we can be confident that the universe as a whole has always existed and will always exist. This is one of the major questions that religion poses. Where did the universe, where did the earth come from? It obviously had to be created in the minds of the religionists by a supernatural God. But Epicurus shows us the way out of that problem by illustrating through the nature of eternal atoms that the universe as a whole never came into being from nothing, never came into being at the will of a supernatural God, but that the universe as a whole, in terms of its components of atoms moving through the void, has always existed and will always exist without any kind of supernatural influence. And third, we can be confident in approaching the mysteries of nature, knowing that there are no supernatural forces behind them. Again, just like Lucian and Alexander the Oracle Monger, we may come into contact with people who claim supernatural abilities, who claim supernatural knowledge. But when you have confidence that the universe operates through natural mechanisms and that there's no room outside the universe or above the universe for there to be a supernatural realm, then you can have confidence that even if you do not currently understand the way things are working, they are not caused by supernatural forces. And ultimately, if you have enough time and technical ability and ability to get close to it and observe it properly, there will be a natural reason for what you're observing, whether or not within your lifetime you're able to understand it. It's going to be natural because there's no possibility of there being a supernatural. All right. Thank you for your time today. Please be sure to drop by the forum at EpicureanFriends.com and let us know if you have any questions or comments about Epicurean philosophy.